My heart beat in irregular stutters against my ribs as I awaited Anya Volkova. It wasn't fear. That had dwindled into a bone-deep weariness at the weight of responsibility I carried. No, it was anticipation thrumming in time with the low hum of force fields enveloping our meeting chamber. I'd ordered its construction the moment we confirmed the Elysium's imminent return. This neutral ground, a gesture of cautious good faith. History, or perhaps what little we salvaged of it, told us the Elysium was one of many vessels dispatched with the last hopes of mankind during the Exodus. Earth, in the throes of an ecological death spiral, had cast its children to the cosmos like seeds, praying one would take root amidst the stars. Then, for generations, only silence echoed back. Each passing decade had cemented the tragic narrative. Humanity's song would play out as a single note, here on Earth. Until yesterday. "Enter," I uttered, a touch too sharply. The familiar words felt rusty on my tongue, as if drawn from a dusty historical drama rather than the unfolding script of today. The force field flickered and parted, revealing the woman whose arrival heralded a potential upheaval of society as we knew it. I hadn't expected her youth. Perhaps naively, I'd pictured someone grizzled and scarred like myself. Anya Volkova, commander of the Elysium, moved with a contained energy that reminded me of an apex predator on its own turf. The star field woven into the emblem on her simple tunic glimmered in the light. A poignant echo of her ship's name, and a subtle reminder of the astronomical gulf she'd traveled. "President Kaido," she acknowledged, her voice clear and strong, yet betraying a subtle accent, a new dialect born on a world across the vast interstellar gulf. We circled each other wordlessly, not yet at the table, but sizing each other up like old-world monarchs at the first meeting before a truce or a duel. I found myself staring at her hands, rough, lined from what must have been toil unlike any seen on Earth. Hands that created miracles of engineering to have brought them back here, alive. A wave of both admiration and an irrational flicker of unease washed over me. Anya met my gaze with disconcerting directness. Perhaps a touch too familiar, as if this whole charade of formality amused her. I suppressed a flicker of irritation. Diplomacy couldn't be rushed, especially not now. "We came in peace," she said at last, her tone almost matter-of-fact. "And in awe." My eyebrows lifted a fraction. Awe. This world held little to warrant that from someone who journeyed among the stars. "Forgive me, Commander, but awe feels inaccurate. Earth has endured dark hours. I assume any scans your ship would have made." My voice trailed off, a challenge implicit in it. Did she have a report of some miracle we'd accomplished in their absence? Had we rebuilt an impossible paradise while they struggled for mere survival in the void? She gave a short, mirthless laugh that startled me. "Oh no. No earthly paradise awaits, I assure you. The awe, President." Her eyes flashed, an unsettling gleam behind them now. "Is your audacity." Audacity? I fought to keep my voice neutral. My fingers dug subtly into the armrest of my chair, seeking the grounding reassurance of its solidity. She waved a hand, gesturing at the sheer scale of the chamber, built deep beneath the old parliament in ruins. "You've survived. This." She paused, seemingly struggling to find the right word. "Fortress you greet us within. We watched it all unfurl in real time, you see. Decades of determination, your refusal to fade into the echoes of history. It stirred something within my people." My blood pulsed colder now. "Watched? Is that how you introduce yourself to your ancestral home? Through surveillance?" "Don't mistake our silence for absence," she retorted. "Your signals bled across the universe like a beacon. Once we detected their resurgence, once we learned you remained. Observation seemed prudent. Prudent, not hostile, yet the admission cast a chilling shadow over this reunion. She had judged us from afar, studied our vulnerabilities before gracing us with her return. This conversation had begun on her terms, and already control felt unnervingly out of reach. I found my voice, forcing it to stay even. So, tell me of Elysium, Commander. Your world. Your journey that has returned you, against all odds. I assume your ship's logs would only provide the cold technical outline. My request seemed to disarm her slightly. For a moment, the cold strategist melted away, replaced by something vulnerable, a flicker of longing that transcended the distance between us. You assume we found an earthly paradise? She began, a note of bittersweet nostalgia coloring her words. We were less fortunate, but we clung to life. Generations sacrificed in pursuit of stability. My gaze softened a fraction. In this, we were perhaps kindred spirits. Survival was a brutal teacher for Earth as well. I gestured around the chamber. We buried what remained of civilization to carve out a future under constant threat, not from some mythical monsters in the night, but the very real hunger of a dying planet. Our nightmares wore no faces, Anya responded, the light dying from her eyes. But they were just as relentless. Our world was inhospitable, not in the way those old texts imagined. We found life there, yes, but a cold, insidious kind. It consumed 3 settlements before we could decode its cycle, learn to outrun the endless, silent bloom that swallowed pioneers and starships alike. Suddenly I craved sunlight, the feel of an honest breeze on my skin, even if carried on the fumes of pollutants. Earth's problems felt raw but simple compared to the silent horror this woman described. How, I began, almost unable to form the question. How did you escape it? Escape, Anya echoed. Then she did smile, but it bore no warmth. We tamed it, turned predator into tool. Ironic, perhaps, after what your Earth endured, but life always finds a way. The word hung in the air between us. Life. Was that all we truly shared anymore? I'd faced extinction at the hands of nature's wrath. The people of Elysium had learned to weaponize nature itself. My mind scrambled to parse the terrifying implications. Anya continued, oblivious to my inner turmoil. It won't be easy, reintegration. It never is, on the scale of cultures so long diverged. You've built something remarkable here, your underground kingdom. It speaks of unity, of shared sacrifice. She met my eye, an unspoken question burning in her gaze. It also speaks of fear, I confessed. Fear of extinction, yes, but also fear of threats outside that familiar struggle. I would be a poor leader if I did not worry what your return might truly mean. An admirable quality, suspicion, she acknowledged with a dip of her chin. And mirrored. It's been too long, President Kaido. Too many generations for us to pretend a seamless reunion of humanity is anything but a fragile dream. I leaned forward, an echo of her earlier intensity flickering within me. Commander Volkova, your arrival isn't just a diplomatic nicety. We both know that. Is the Elysium offering sanctuary for Earth's survivors, or an ultimatum? Her answer was measured. The Elysium was never built for planetary evacuation, as I'm sure you've gleaned. But within those limitations, I believe there is common ground. We don't arrive as supplicants. The Elysium has become more than a ship. It's a crucible where humanity survived the unimaginable. Its technology, the adaptations necessary in space may hold surprising advantages for what remains of life on Earth. It was the opening I'd hoped for, and yet the unease refused to recede. Her words held the calculated charm of politicians through the millennia. Promises spun out of necessity, laced with enough truth to mask the whole picture. This was no joyous homecoming. It won't be simple, I admitted, both aloud and to myself. The Earth I lead has suffered greatly. I owe our people time to understand that Elysium has returned from death to become something other. Not so much other as evolved, Anya countered, but without the sting of correction. It was more contemplative now, tinged with weary acknowledgement of reality. It's what the cosmos demanded. Perhaps it's even a taste of humanity's greater future. Her words stirred a mix of dread and defiance within me. Humanity carved out its future right here, Commander, on the graveyard of our former hubris. The tension seemed to snap between us, and I watched a strange mirroring. We both rose, not in threat, but drawn by a strange shared intensity. I could respect this woman but never underestimate her. My grandfather told me stories, I murmured, more to myself than her. He was born here, before the soil died and the great cities became tombs. He dreamt of the Exodus, saw your ship, your ancestors, depart with hope in his eyes. I let out a harsh laugh. They expected news eventually, broadcasts. Not that the stars would spit their children back at us after the planet itself tried to do the same. No one could have foreseen, Anya began, then let the sentence wither, echoing the endless futility of speculation. It was pointless to debate alternative timelines, past failings. Her face held a somber resolve, not the false sorrow of one unaffected. Perhaps the bloom on their own world did claim some of her heart, as Earth's poisons had marked mine. But it changes. I hesitated, not knowing how to articulate the whirlwind of my thoughts. Everything. Your return upends plans decades in the making. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in Anya's eyes. Not doubt in her people, but in the fragile illusion of control she'd maintained. What we offer Earth isn't salvation, President Kaido. It's an alliance forged in desperation. Both our homes teeter on the brink. You've mastered survival here in the darkness. My people conquered the void on a ship never meant for forever. Perhaps now, together. Her voice faltered, not out of uncertainty, but as if acknowledging something both frightening and wondrous. It mirrored the emotion coursing through me. In that single space, the cavernous expanse of the meeting chamber seemed to shrink. I wasn't merely Earth's president speaking to the commander of a lost colony. I was one scarred leader speaking to another. In the echoing silence, unspoken questions lingered. Could mutual vulnerability become an unforeseen source of strength? Was trust too heavy a word for this uncertain moment? The silence between us crackled with more possibility than any words. Our paths diverged eons ago, yet at our core, we both knew the cold sting of responsibility and the crushing weight of impossible choices. Our ancestors must have known these burdens, but theirs were tempered by dreams of fertile new worlds and the arrogant illusion of escape. For Anya and me, there was only the stark reality of survival or extinction. We had become custodians of humanity's dwindling flame. Your ancestors wouldn't recognize us, I murmured, an almost bitter acknowledgement. A flicker of a genuine smile tugged at Anya's lips. We wouldn't recognize them either. Yet, here we are. Not merely here, I countered. Together, this alliance you propose, the implications are staggering. I walked in a slow circle, mind whirling. It was no longer just a negotiation. The fate of a planet and its people lay within our trembling hands. Each option carried its own terrifying burden. Trust and cooperation could lead to unforeseen strength, or a crushing betrayal. Could I gamble everything Earth had achieved on the unpredictable nature of our long-lost kin? Isolation meant continued hardship, but also meant control. Refusal would shatter Anya's tentative offer and condemn the Elysium's people to eternal exile among the uncaring stars. Let's be blunt, I said, turning to her. You need more than an alliance. You need a home. We have resources you lack, space beneath the surface that your ship was never designed to replicate. This would be a merger of our societies, not simply a helping hand. Her chin lifted. This isn't charity, President Kaido. Every mouth I feed, every child my people have birthed in the unforgiving confines of that ship. They represent skills, resilience, and knowledge honed against unique obstacles. You'd become stronger, she finished, the last word hanging heavy in the air. It was the unspoken promise echoing since their return. Our worlds had faced vastly different trials, and only now did I dare to glimpse the potential. What if Earth's resilience, fueled by the biological innovations from Elysium, what if it became a spark to revive and reclaim what was lost? Stronger. The word tasted hollow, bittersweet. I'd built this underground shelter as a last stand, not a welcoming hall for returning colonists who could just as easily become conquerors. Yet my thoughts kept returning to my grandfather, watching with hope as humanity took its first desperate leap into the void. It had been our only solution then. Could it be so again? Tell me more of this bloom, I said, turning the focus away from politics and towards shared threats. I needed tangible ground before gambling abstract concepts like unity. Perhaps it holds solutions for us as well. Anya's eyes darkened. It is insidious. More than alien flora. Almost symbiotic with the planet itself. It sleeps for cycles, a vast choking carpet, then wakes in destructive pulses. Our survival was... She faltered, an unseen memory stealing her composure momentarily. We learned to anticipate these phases, to flee. That's what turned the Elysium from transport to world. A living machine eternally outrunning death. And harnessing it, I pressed. If anyone could turn adversity into power, it would be her people. A wry smile flickered across her lips. In ways you wouldn't imagine. Our engines run on its essence, our artificial suns powered by a fragile understanding of its cycle. Even with those breakthroughs, a static existence was unsustainable. This, she gestured with a dismissive wave as if encompassing our earth beneath our feet. This abundance, it was our goal since the Exodus. Tell me what Elysium would bring to the table, I demanded, the leader in me surfacing through the dizzying tide of questions. If not as conquerors, then what? The shift was clear to both of us. This wasn't about sentimentality, not anymore. The ghosts of our ancestors, their ambitions and sins, faded before the sheer necessity of forging a pact between survivors. If there was a flicker of hope for humanity, it lay somewhere in this uncomfortable collaboration. Earth would need hard proof that the returning ship brought salvation, and not a different kind of doom. Anya seemed not at all surprised by my shift in tone. If anything, I detected a glimmer of respect mirrored in her gaze. Elysium brings solutions hard-won, technologies we were forced to evolve. Not mere trinkets, she said dismissively, but advancements ingrained in our very way of life. She pulled a simple bracelet from her pocket, not ornate metal, but something resembling woven fibers. They faintly pulsed with an inner light, an unnervingly organic quality, contrasting with the stark lines of her uniform. Symbiotic energy, we live surrounded by it, she explained. Not simply powering starships, but the very breath of our people. Imagine your cities unbound from toxic generators, your fields warmed not by fragile artificial suns, but by a sustainable force learned from that which nearly snuffed our existence. It was as much a vision as a technological breakthrough. The bracelet hummed softly, pulsing in synchrony with her heartbeat. Earth relied on crumbling tech, desperate jury-rigged solutions. Anya's people had, by necessity, become one with the forces driving their own destruction. It was both frightening and mesmerizing. Survival on such a ship, I mused, trying to grasp the full scope. What else? Efficient closed systems, recycling not as a last resort, but the first axiom of life. Medicine adapted for unique challenges. Indeed, Anya nodded, but you wouldn't simply gain new tools. We evolved not only what we create, but who we are. Elysium fosters specialists. Humans with refined talents, adapted for a life we couldn't foresee. Some can interface with the bloom, our navigators, predicting its deadly pulses. Others have heightened physical adaptations born from generations in near-zero gravity. All possess honed determination. My spine tingled, not with fear this time, but a potent blend of trepidation and a burgeoning, terrible hope. If her words were true, a unified Earth, fueled by Elysium's knowledge, wouldn't simply recover. It could surpass anything imagined in the texts describing our fall. Yet, this new humanity, these specialists, they represented an irrevocable evolution. The word hung in the air, unspoken. Evolution. Earth had faced it as a harsh sculptor, forcing adaptation to the poisoned cradle. Elysium's evolution was directed, deliberate. Were we willing to change as a species, not through natural trial, but through controlled design, as they had? The possibilities sang in my blood, yet an echoing scream warned of tampering with the very essence of who we were. And this new humanity, I began, trying to untangle my conflicting thoughts. They don't see them differently? These specialists? The flicker of sadness in Anya's eyes told its own story. I'd be a liar if I said prejudice vanished overnight. Necessity fosters acceptance, not instant enlightenment. Generations raised aboard Elysium. Their world looks nothing like this, she gestured out, as if trying to encompass all of Earth. Yet, that ship is home. The bloom and its cycles are woven into their souls. Our reunion would be a clash of identities, even before integrating those adaptations. Her brutal honesty disarmed me. We were, as she'd said early on, two different echoes of humanity. Each solution we'd found to survival would seem monstrous to the other. I stood, a bone-deep exhaustion finally seeping through me. This went beyond politics, beyond even the practical survival of two fractured pieces of Earth's legacy. I needed more than Anya's words, needed some way to touch the reality of her people and this unimaginable world they'd birthed. My people won't decide our future based on theories and promises, not after all they've endured, and I understand. I met her gaze head on. I would need to feel this symbiotic energy coursing through you, see the world Elysium crafted. Would your ship allow some of my advisors aboard? It is the only way. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her indecision resonated with me, mirroring the scale of the decision before her. Was the fragile thread of trust built within this chamber enough to risk taking Earth's leadership through the doors of her world, where all our advantages faded and an entire history of deception from above could come crashing down? The tension pulsed thick, almost tangible. Each passing second echoed with the momentous gravity of what hung in the balance. For all of history, humanity had clung to familiar shadows, known enemies, and predictable threats. Today, we held our collective breath at the prospect of confronting our uncanny reflection. Could we face the unsettling mirror the returning colonists represented? Finally, Anya broke the silence with a single word. Tomorrow. It was a statement as weighty as 100 speeches, pregnant with unspoken understanding. There would be more questions, details to iron out, but the core agreement thrummed in the air between us. The gesture I asked for was colossal in its inherent risk, an offering unlike any made in Earth's fractured recent history. Anya agreed to open the heart of the Elysium to not just outsiders, but the leaders of a world both eager and afraid of being left behind in the cosmos. It could be a show of unity or an invitation to disaster. And that risk, both terrible and tantalizing, lay with her. A flicker of exhaustion softened her features, replacing the ever-present alertness. Yet, as her shoulders slumped in a momentary respite, I sensed a subtle difference. She'd been carrying more than the weight of her people and their secrets. For the first time since her arrival, she looked more like a commander coming home after a grueling campaign. This was the woman who might usher in humanity's rebirth or preside over its final divide. In that one small act of weariness, we found a shred of common ground stronger than politics, pride, or the ghosts of our ancestors. Relief swept over me, almost shamefully unexpected. For a fleeting instant, my heart dared to whisper that perhaps, in the returning starfarers, I hadn't just found another species wearing humanity's mask, but an improbable thread leading Earth out of the self-dug grave we'd spent countless lives defending. That whisper carried both terrifying and intoxicating potential. We stood on a razor's edge, facing not just a choice for our two fragmented peoples, but an irrevocable alteration of humanity as we knew it. Until then, Anya breathed, a rasp in her voice that hinted at exhaustion beyond even my imagination. With those two words, 1,000 plans whirled through my mind. The selection of those advisors. It wasn't merely about showcasing competence, but finding ones who'd see humanity in the adaptations Anya warned of. Those open to facing the potential of this merger while keenly aware of the risk posed by a humanity evolving towards two different destinies. We both understood that this wouldn't be a scientific exchange, a tour of wondrous trinkets. This was an invitation to witness the heartbeat of their civilization, their strengths laid bare against their vulnerabilities. For all her stoicism, Anya had made herself impossibly exposed within our first meetings. She'd not merely offered Earth an olive branch, but bared her heart, with all its scars, before asking me to do the same. There could be no delay. Anya had spoken of this bloom, its implacable cycle. Each hour weighed heavier with unspoken urgency. It wouldn't only be her ship I sought to understand tomorrow, but also the relentless cosmic hunter on their heels. That understanding alone held the key to assessing whether our alliance stood any chance at all. I nodded once, a simple agreement mirroring her previous utterance. This went beyond politics, beyond even the practical survival of two fractured pieces of Earth's legacy. In her willingness to bare her soul and her world, I recognized the echoes of my grandfather's generation. This fragile piece could crack on any given detail, any misunderstanding. Only with that unyielding commitment to transparency had any of us survived this long. Sleep evaded me that night. My mind played an impossible chess game, weighing unimaginable stakes. This went beyond saving the fragments of Earth. I played for the future of humanity itself. The next day, within the belly of the beast named Elysium, the scales would truly tip. The grandest battle we've ever fought wouldn't be against our old enemies, but against the specter of distrust, our own and that of the returning children of Earth.